Another super simple motion animation tutorial. This time we're going to animate a rocket ship with a particle emitter fire coming out of the base of it. So let's get started. Let's head over to Google Chrome and you're going to search for rocket clip art. I like this particular one partially because the PNG means that the background is already transparent. So I'm going to click view image and I am going to save this image as and place it on our desktop. Now, when the file is downloaded, I can click Show in Finder, and we're going to bring this file into Photoshop. So make sure Photoshop's open. You can launch Photoshop in your Launchpad like usual, and I'm just going to drag this rocket ship into Photoshop and let go, and here we go. So to prepare this for motion, we need to get rid of this flame here so that we can create our own animated real flame. So let's just start with some basic selections. I'm going to use the magic wand tool, which is under the quick select tool. This will allow us to select entire colors at once, and we'll just hit delete. And now we just need to get rid of these flame lines. So there's several different ways that you can do this, one of which is the eraser tool, which is E on your keyboard or right here in the icons menu. And basically you can just make sure brush hardness is set all the way up to 100%, and you can just go through here and start erasing out. Now remember, whenever you use the eraser tool, you're permanently erasing this. The only way you can get something back is to undo, which sometimes works but sometimes doesn't work for you, depending on how long ago it was you accidentally erased something. So I'm just going to do like that. I'll undo. I'm just going to do a really quick erase job on this. I expect you to spend a little more time to try to get this perfect. But for the sake of keeping this tutorial under 10 minutes, I'm just going to really quickly go in here and do this. Okay, there's our rocket ship without the fire. So one thing that I'm going to need to do to make this line up better in motion is I want this rocket ship pointing straight up and down. So I'm going to go ahead inside of Photoshop and shrink this down a little bit using transform and just make this rocket ship pointing exactly straight up and down. You can use a guide to help with this if you need to. Basically you can eyeball it. So that looks pretty good to me. I'm going to file, save as, make sure PNG is selected to preserve that transparent background. I'm going to name this new version of the rocket just Rocket. Alright, let's head on over to Motion. In Motion, you're going to create a new project. Make sure you fit the canvas so we can see what you're working on. Go over to the Finder. And on the desktop, you'll find that Rocket PNG. We'll drag that into Group, and when this comes in by default, it might be humongous. That's okay. We'll just scale it down. So we're going to go to the Inspector, Properties, and Scale. And we'll start dropping that down until our rocket ship is, about this size in the frame. Okay? Now, the animation process is going to be just like the first tutorial I ever did. Go to Basic Motion, Motion Path. It's going to create this motion path. I'll zoom out, Command minus on your keyboard, until you can see both points. We'll set one point in the upper corner. Let's zoom back in, Command plus, and let's put the other point off the other corner. So come down here in the timeline and make sure everything is starting at the beginning of the timeline, and there's our animation. This time around I'm going to manually rotate the rocket because we're not going to be doing any curved movements. So I'll just click this rotation tool right here, and I'll rotate the rocket until it is aligned perfectly along the motion path. So if we hit play now, here you can see our rocket ship going off. Alright, so let's go ahead and zoom back in on our project a bit, Command plus, until it just about fills the whole canvas area. Let's get our playhead to the point where the rocket ship is out here in the middle. And now let's head back over to our library and particle emitters. And inside of particle emitters, we're looking for match. Whoop, there it is. Actually, Holiday Flame will work just fine if that's what you find first. So let's drag Holiday Flame right into our project and put it right by the rocket ship. Again, make sure it is starting at the beginning of the project. So if we scrub through with our playhead or hit play, you're gonna see that Holiday Flame's just sitting there making flame but not animated. So first steps are, let's rotate it so that it's headed the same direction as our rocket ship, and let's just try to move it in place behind the rocket ship. We can fatten it up a little bit by scaling it that direction. There's our really basic layout. We're gonna have to adjust this position again in just a second, but what I want to show you right now is the flame is coming from in front of the rocket, which we don't want. We want it coming from behind the rocket. So just like in Photoshop, this is controlled by the stacking of layers. So I'm going to grab my rocket and I'm going to set it above the flame, and that issue is now fixed. Now we just need the two to animate at the exact same time so they appear to be connected to each other. There are many different ways to do this. The easiest, in my opinion, is going to be using motion tracking. So let's click on the flame layer and then go up to our behaviors, motion tracking, and choose match move. Now go to the inspector, make sure match move is selected. In the inspector, you'll see the source. It's asking what you want to match. So we'll just really quickly click the rocket ship and drag it in this well in one movement. So I'm going to click on that and drag it to there and let go. And now these two are paired together, so they move together. Obviously, you can see an issue here where the flame is in front of the rocket. We don't want that, so we're going to fix it. Click on your particle emitter and just drag it back behind the rocket and do any other scaling that you feel the need to do with that flame. But once it's positioned, if you hit play, that flame will now be part of the rocket ship. So one more thing about particle emitters, if yours is like mine, right now you can see these gaps. It doesn't really look like a true fire. So in my emitter inspector, I'll click emitter. I'm looking for birth rate. This is how often the particle emitter emits these flame particles. So if I turn this way up, we'll get a much nicer fire glow coming out of the back of that. So let's preview it one more time. And there you go. There's a basic rocket fire animation tutorial.